The signal no one wanted the Velari Empire was old. Its star lanes stretched across dozens of systems, glowing bright in the maps of the galactic core. But for all their beauty, those lights now hid a quiet fear whispers of ships that went dark and never returned. On the edge of the Empire, far from the capital's safety, sat Relay Station N-17. It was an ancient construct, half forgotten, orbiting a small red dwarf. The Velari kept it running out of habit, its massive dish turning slowly in the darkness, listening to the endless chatter of the galaxy. For years, the station had been silent. Just another relic of a time when empires dared to reach farther. Then their courage allowed Dot then. One night cycle, the silence broke. The station's lone operator, a tired alien named Sarek, was slouched in his chair, eyes half closed. He had not seen anything important in decades. But suddenly, the console screamed to life. A sharp alarm blared, pulling him upright. The waveform on the screen was jagged, raw and full of static dot at first. He thought it was a malfunction. But then, the message pushed through the noise a voice, trembling with panic. "This is Velari Colony, under attack, unknown ships." Their static swallowed the rest. Sarek's blood chilled. This wasn't a pirate raid. Pirates didn't jam coms. Pirates didn't make entire colonies vanish. He tapped into the emergency log to trace the source. It was from Aerith 4, a frontier world at the Empire's farthest rim. The system was remote, unimportant to the core worlds. That's why it had been left vulnerable. The signal came again, this time weaker. "They are inside the walls. You can't see them." And then silence. Within minutes, the signal bounced across the Velari Com network. Messages flashed through encrypted channels to the nearest military posts. But the replies that came back were hesitant, slow. No one wanted to go. At the Velari Imperial Command Hall, high-ranking officials gathered. The air was thick with unease. Commander Rithel of the Inner Fleet broke the silence. "We have no confirmation of the enemy's identity. Deploying forces could risk more lives than it saves." General Averin shook his head. "You've heard the rumors. This matches the Voidborn attacks in the Outer Crescent. If they've reached Aerith 4, it's already too late." They spoke in calm, logical tones, but the truth was simpler. They were afraid. The Voidborn were not just an enemy. They were a nightmare. By the time the Council finished talking, the emergency signal had been marked low priority. The galaxy had just decided to let Aerith 4 die, but the signal kept traveling. It passed from Velari relays into shared networks, jumping system to system until it reached an older, less refined communication grid, one that didn't belong to the Velari Empire at all. This grid belonged to Earth. On the human deep space command vessel Resolute, Admiral Kara Vance stood over a holomap. She was in the middle of routine patrol orders when the incoming ping lit up her screen. It was tagged as Emergency Foreign Origin. Her comms officer glanced up. "Admiral, we've got a distress call from the Velari frontier. Audio only. It's not good." Kara frowned. The Velari were part of the Galactic Council, and Council law was clear. Human fleets were not to interfere in internal matters. Still, she gestured for the officer to play it. The broken voice filled the bridge. "Please, anyone. They're inside." "They're not." The audio warped into a scream, then cut off. No one on the bridge spoke. Kara's eyes narrowed. She had heard stories, ships found adrift with no crew, planets stripped of life in hours. In every tale, the enemy was the same, the Voidborn. Her second-in-command, Commander Rhodes, stepped closer. "Council orders will be to stay out of. Get Velari territory, Velari problem." Kara didn't answer right away. She looked at the faces of her crew-hardened veterans from the deadliest worlds in human space. They knew what it meant to grow up where everything tried to kill you. They were Deathworlders. Finally, she spoke. If we were the ones calling for help, would they come for us? Rhodes hesitated, then shook his head. No. Kara's voice was calm, but there was steel in it. Then Plata jumped to Aerith 4. If the Voidborn are there, we stop them before they move on. Somewhere in the shadows between stars, Relay Station N17 fell silent again. The Velari officials closed their case files. As far as the Empire was concerned, the matter was over. But out in the cold void, the Deathworlders' engines roared to life. The signal no one wanted had found the only people willing to answer. Asterisk Deathworlders' decision. The Resolute floated in the dark like a silent predator. Its hull was black and sharp-edged, built for both speed and survival. Inside, the hum of power cores was the only sound until the war room doors hissed open. Admiral Caravans stepped inside, her boots echoing on the metal floor. The hollow table in the center displayed Aerith 4's position, a lonely dot at the edge of known space. Around it, red warning markers pulsed like a heartbeat. Her senior officers stood waiting, eyes fixed on her. They already knew what the signal meant back. Commander Rhodes was the first to speak. If the Voidborn are there, we're walking into a graveyard. We've walked into worse, Kara replied, voice steady. The question is, do we let them take another world without a fight? A murmur ran through the room. These were Deathworlders, men and women from planets where even the air could kill you. They had been shaped by danger since birth. But the Voidborn were different. They weren't part of the natural order. They were a force that erased life completely. Kara brought up a new feed classified reports the Council had hidden. Images flickered, hollow cities with no bodies, only shadows burned into walls. Starships drifting with their crews gone, but food still warm on the tables. This is what they leave behind, Kara said. This is what's waiting for Aerith 4. Rhodes crossed his arms. Council law says. Kara cut him off. Council. Law leaves them to die. We don't. The decision was made without a vote. Orders spread through the ship. Crew members strapped into their stations. Engineers checked the jump drive's calibration, and weapons crews loaded fresh plasma cores into the cannons. The Resolute was not going alone. Kara opened a secure Channel 1 only known to human. Fleet captains willing to break orders. This is Admiral Kara Vance to any Deathworlder vessel within 5 light days. We have a confirmed alien distress call, possible Voidborn contact. The Council will not act. We will. The responses came. Fast. From the ice-covered world of Kareen, the destroyer Iron Fang. From the volcanic colonies of Arctis, the frigate Molten Blade. From deep asteroid mines, the gunship Black Spine. One by one, their captains answered the same way. We're with you. In less than an hour, a strike fleet of Deathworlder warships formed up around the Resolute. Their combined hulls glinted under distant starlight, each one marked with the scars of past battles. The Velari Council finally noticed. A sharp transmission arrived, their voice full of cold authority. Human vessels, you are in violation of Galactic intervention law. You will disengage immediately. Kara didn't even bother responding to the Council directly. She let her comm officer send a short message instead. We are not intervening. In politics, we are answering a call for help. The jump countdown began 10 minutes until the fleet tore a hole in space and crossed, light years in a heartbeat. Kara stood at the bridge viewport, staring at the starfield. Somewhere beyond those dots of light, an entire colony was waiting for death. Somewhere in the dark, the Voidborn were hunting. Rhodes came to stand beside her. If we do this, there's no going back. She gave him a faint smile. Good. That means we're doing the right thing. 5 minutes left. Alarms echoed softly through the ship as power built in the jump cores. On every vessel, crew members strapped in tighter. Weapon systems spun up, their energy levels glowing hot. On the monitors, 3 minutes. The Council's voice came again, sharper this time. Stand down or face expulsion from the Galactic Accord. Kara didn't even look at the COM screen. She kept her eyes on the stars. 1 minute. The fleet's captains came on a shared channel. Their voices united. For Aerith 4, the countdown hit 0. Space twisted. Stars stretched into lines of white fire. The Resolute and her fleet vanished into the void headed straight for the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Far behind them, the Velari Council fell silent. They would watch. They would wait. And they would pray that somehow the Deathworlders would succeed where no one else dared to try. Asterisk. First contact with fear. The Resolute came out of jump space with a shudder. Outside the viewport, Aerith 4 hung against the black of green and blue, jewel wrapped in clouds. But something was wrong. The planet's night side was almost completely dark. No city lights, no beacon towers. Just a dead shadow across the curve of the world. Sensors started screaming almost immediately. The Resolute's AI voice was calm but cold. Warning. Multiple debris fields detected. Origin Velari civilian. Vessels. The fleet slowed, slipping into a silent formation. Wreckage drifted in orbit-shattered transports, torn station rings, and strange black shards that didn't match any known design. Some of the shards twitched slightly, like they were still alive. Kara stared at the main screen. Magnify. The image zoomed in on one shard. It was covered in tiny hook-like spines, and as the camera focused, the thing suddenly folded in on itself and darted out of view. It had moved. On the ground, faint distress beacons blinked in random. Intervals most were too weak to lock onto. The Velari colony's main city, Grinport, was half destroyed. Several skyscrapers leaned at strange angles, as if pulled from the top by something impossibly strong. Commander Rhodes leaned over. The console. They didn't just attack from space. They came down. Kara's jaw tightened. Launch recon drones. I want eyes inside those streets. The drones entered the atmosphere, their feeds streaming back to the bridge. At first, the city looked abandoned. Streets were cracked, markets empty, vehicles overturned, and covered in a thin layer of ash. Then, in one alley, the image flickered, and a shadow passed across the camera without blocking the sun. Rewind that, Kara ordered. Crew played it back, frame by frame. The shadow didn't have a clear shape, just a distortion in the air, as if the space itself was bending. One drone found survivors. A group of Velari huddled in a collapsed tram station, their eyes wide and unfocused. They didn't respond to the drone's speaker until a human Marine squad landed nearby. Sergeant Callan stepped forward, removing his helmet. We're here to help. Where are the attackers? A trembling Velari elder pointed to the ceiling. They're already here. The Marines swept the tunnels with thermal scanners, nothing. They switched to motion detection, still nothing. And one soldier's visor picked up a flicker of movement on the far wall. He moved closer. The wall rippled and opened two narrow black eyes. The soldier barely had time to shout before the thing lunged, vanishing into his shadow. He screamed once and was gone. No body, no trace. Back on the Resolute, Kara heard the cum feed go dead. She didn't hesitate. All ground teams, lock perimeter around evac zones. We're not chasing them blind. But the survivors were panicking. Some refused to leave shelter, insisting that the Voidborn could follow them anywhere, not just physically, but through sound and memory. One young Velari woman whispered to a Marine, "They already know you're here. Once they notice you, they never stop." In orbit, the situation grew worse. Long-range sensors picked up incoming ships small, black, and moving at impossible speeds. Kara's tactical officer reported, "No heat signatures, no transponders. They're not broadcasting anything." The Velari survivors on com channels began to scream in their own language. The translation AI gave 2 words: the hunters. The Deathworlder fleet formed a tight wall between the planet and the incoming contacts. Weapons powered up, hull plating shifted into defensive positions. Kara gave the order quietly, almost like a prayer. "Hold this line." Outside, the black ships slowed, then vanished completely from sensors. Every crew member felt it, the same. Chill. They were no longer sure if the enemy was in front of them or already aboard. Asterisk. The hunt in the shadows. The first human drop teams hit the surface under the cover of heavy cloud. Their boots crunched on streets, coated in fine gray dust, not sand, not ash, but something lighter, almost like powdered. Bone. No one spoke about it. Sergeant Callan's squad moved through the ruins of Grinport, sweeping each alley and tunnel. The buildings leaned over them like broken teeth, glass hanging in sharp shards from cracked windows. Every few minutes, something made the squad freeze, a whisper that came from no direction, a flicker at the edge of vision, a faint scrape-on. Stone. One Marine muttered over comms, "Feels like we're being watched." Callan's reply was low and sharp, "We are." Above, the Resolute's recon drones sent back fragmented videostatic bursts, cutting through the feed every time. The cameras tried to track the distortions moving between shadows. Admiral Kara stood at the main console, eyes locked on the chaos below. She recognized the pattern. The Voidborn weren't rushing the humans, they were circling, testing, trying to see how they would react. "They're not attacking yet," Rhodes said. "They're hunting," Kara answered. Inside the cities, old maintenance tunnels, the squad found the source of one faint distress beacon. It led them to a sealed storage room. Callan pried the door open and froze. The room was full of Velari, but none moved. They stood upright, eyes wide, mouths open in silent screams, their skin pale and dry like statues. Every one of them was frozen mid-breath. "Medical?" Callan asked. The medic shook his head. "They're empty. No heartbeat. No brain activity." A soft sound came from deeper in the tunnel. It wasn't a footstep. It wasn't a voice. It was a wet, dragging sound, slow and deliberate. The Marines aimed their rifles into the dark. Their helmet lamps illuminated only the swirling dust. Then, without warning, the lamps all flickered. In the brief flashes of light, shapes appeared tall, wrong-angled, too thin to be alive, crawling along the ceiling like insects. Callan fired first, the shot lighting up the tunnel for a split second. In that light, they saw dozens of them, black forms clinging to the walls, their faces featureless except for 2 glimmering points, like drops of oil. By the time the light faded, the shapes were gone. "Command, we've got multiple hostiles inside the colony," Callan reported. "They can disappear." Kara's voice came through, steady but urgent. "Fall back to the evac point. Do not engage unless you have a clear shot." The squad started moving back, but the tunnels had changed. The turns weren't the same. The walls seemed closer. It was as if the city itself had shifted. One Marine checked his map. "This is wrong. We came from that way." "No," Callan said, his voice tight. "They're making us think we did." From above ground, gunfire erupted. Another Marine. Teen was defending the evac zone from sudden attack shapes appearing in midair, solidifying just long enough to strike before vanishing again. A panicked Velari shouted over open comms, "You can't kill them. They're already dead." Kara slammed her hand on the armrest. "Get those civilians on the transports. Hold that zone." On the Resolute, Tactical alarms screamed void-borne ships were now entering the upper atmosphere. Their hulls rippled like liquid metal, bending the sunlight around them. Rhodes looked at Kara. They're not just here for the Valeri. They know we've come. The Deathworlder fleet descended lower, forming a protective ring over the city. From the ground, the sight was overwhelming massive warships blotting out the sky, their shadows sweeping over the broken streets like a wall of iron dot inside the tunnels. Callan's squad finally saw the exit light ahead, only for it to flicker and vanish. And in the darkness, dozens of eyes opened all at once. Asterisk. Fleet of Fire the Resolute's bridge shook as the first void-borne ships broke through the clouds. They didn't fly like normal vessels. They twisted, bending the air around them, vanishing for seconds before reappearing closer. Targeting locks unstable, the weapons officer said. They keep phasing in and out. Kara didn't blink. Then fire where they will be. The order went out. Above Aerith 4. The Deathworlder fleet moved in perfect sync. Destroyers peeled off in sharp arcs. Gunships dove through the atmosphere. And the Resolute opened with a broadside, so bright it lit the night side of the planet. Plasma lances tore through the sky, each beam hitting within meters of civilians, but never touching them. Alien witnesses stared in disbelief. No other species could aim so close without killing their own. Down below, Sergeant Callan's squad burst from the tunnels, dragging 2 Valari survivors with them. The evac zone was chaos, dropships rising into the air while swarms of shadowy forms tried to latch onto their hulls. Marine fire teams moved in tight circles, covering every angle, rifles snapping in short, controlled bursts. "Don't waste shots," Callan barked. "They want us to panic." Overhead, the void-borne ships changed tactics. Instead of attacking the fleet, they split into dozens of smaller shards, each one a living weapon that rained down toward the city. Like a black storm, Kara's voice cut through combs. All vessels blanket fire pattern, low altitude. Burn the sky. The next 30 seconds were pure thunder. The Deathworlders unleashed everything: autocanons, plasma arcs, rail slugs traveling at near light speed. The air itself turned white-hot. When the smoke cleared, the sky was empty. The shards were gone, or hiding, but everyone knew it was temporary. On the far side of the colony, a massive tremor rolled through the ground. Entire buildings toppled as something huge forced its way up from beneath. Callan saw at first a void-borne war beast, its body a writhing mass of black tendrils, taller than the highest tower still standing. Its face was a mask of shifting bone plates, and every few seconds it split open to reveal a pit of teeth. The Valari civilians screamed. Even hardened Marines went pale. Kara saw it too. She didn't waste time with awe. "Fleet, concentrate fire on that target. Bring it down before it reaches the evac zone." The Iron Fang destroyer descended so low its hull scraped the tops of ruined towers. Its main cannon fired, the blast hitting the creature's side and tearing away an entire limb. But the thing kept coming. The beast swiped through a gunship, splitting it in two. The wreckage slammed into a street, scattering soldiers. Callan yelled into comms, "We need heavy support now." In answer, the black-spine gunship dove between towers, firing both side batteries at point-blank range. The hits ripped the beast open, black smoke and burning fragments spilling out like blood. Still, it didn't die. On the bridge of the Resolute, Rhodes looked at Kara. "It's adapting." "Then so will we," Kara said. She tapped her console. "Ready the Thor strike." The crew froze. The Thor strike was a last resort orbital weapon, devastating, dangerous, and impossible to hide from the Council. "Ma'am," Rhodes said quietly, "if we use that, they'll know." Kara's eyes didn't leave the target. "Good, let them." Above the city, the Resolute's belly opened, revealing a long cylinder glowing with white energy. Power built inside until it roared like a star being born. On the ground, Callan's squad and the Velari survivors threw themselves into cover as the air began to vibrate. The Thor strike dropped. A beam of pure light slammed into the war beast, burning through it in less than a second, then punching deep into the earth. When the glare faded, the creature was gone. So was half the street. But even in victory, Kara's voice stayed grim over Combs. They'll be back, and next time, they'll come for us first. The last stand on Velari, Thor Strike's afterglow still burned in the clouds when the next wave came, not from the skies. From inside, on the Resolute, alarms howled. Multiple intrusions detected decks 3 through 8, the tactical officer shouted. The enemy hadn't breached the hull by force. They had phased through it. Kara's voice cut through the chaos. Seal the lower decks. All hands to defensive positions. Marines keep them away from engineering. In the corridors, the lights flickered. Shadows stretched across the walls, in impossible shapes, bending against the direction of the lamps. Sergeant Callan's squad, recalled from the surface, pushed forward with rifles up. The air was heavy, thick, like being underwater. A whisper slid down the hallway, not in words, but in a feeling. It was cold, like the sound of a grave opening. Private Voss stumbled, clutching his head. There, inside my thoughts, something yanked him into the wall. He didn't even have time to scream. Meanwhile, on the ground, the evac zone was in full panic. Dropships roared into the sky, some overloaded with Velari civilians, others leaving empty because survivors refused to leave shelter. Lieutenant Mara, in charge of the perimeter, saw the shimmering shapes at the edge of her vision. They're hurting us, she realized. They want us bunched together. She ordered her troops to spread into a loose circle-less protection, but harder for the Voidborn to close in unnoticed. The Velari leaders stared at the human soldiers. You fight them like you've seen this before. Mara's voice was flat. We have. Inside the Resolute, Rhodes coordinated counterattacks, cut them off at Junction Bravo. He barked into Combs. The Marines set up a choke point, placing automated turrets along the narrow corridor. When the first Voidborn emerged, they didn't rush. They slid forward, half-formed, like liquid shadows trying to remember how to be solid. The turrets opened fire, rounds glowing white-hot, tearing pieces off the intruders, but the fragments simply melted and crawled back into the mass. Kara knew. They couldn't win by holding ground forever. Evacuation progress? She asked. 70%, Rhodes replied. But the enemy's cutting us off from the last landing bays. Kara's decision was instant. Move those people too. The hangar. We'll hold the corridors ourselves. Rhodes blinked. Ma'am, that's not a request. The last stretch to the hangar was hell. Callan's squad moved as a wall, rifles spitting fire, boots slipping on the black residue the Voidborn left behind. Every time they thought they'd cleared a corridor, another ripple in the air warned them otherwise. Marine took a claw through the chest. His body vanished before it hit the ground. The squad didn't slow down. They couldn't dot in the hangar. The survivors poured into the last dropship. A Velari child, clutching a human soldier's hand, looked back and whispered, "They're following us." Callan slammed the ramp shut. "Not if we close the door." Kara watched from the bridge as the last dropship cleared the hull. Her com-officer gave a shaky nod. Evacuation complete. The Resolute's engines roared to life. But before they could break orbit, a massive ripple spread across the viewport. The Voidborn fleet had arrived larger than anything they had seen before. Rhodes looked at Kara. "We can't outrun that." Kara's voice was steady. "Then, we don't." She tapped the armrest. "Prepare the core for overload. Signal the fleet everyone else gets out now. When the stars went quiet, the Resolute held its place in orbit, a lone black shape against the burning clouds of Aerith 4. Around it, the rest of the Deathworlder fleet obeyed Kara's order. They jumped to safety. Leaving her ship surrounded, the Voidborn fleet closed in. Their hulls shimmered like liquid glass, each curve hiding teeth and claws. They didn't rush. They were enjoying this. On the bridge, Kara stood with her hands behind her back. Rhodes was still at his post, refusing to leave. You gave the evacuation order. That doesn't mean I'm leaving you here. Kara gave him the faintest smile. Good. I'll need someone to press the button with me. Below deck, the engineering team worked in silence, rerouting every safety lock in the Resolute's core. The massive reactor throbbed brighter and brighter until the walls themselves began to glow faintly. Callan and the surviving Marines sealed, bulkheads, laying traps, mines, plasma charges, anything to make the Voidborn hesitate for even a few seconds. From the viewing ports, the planet below shimmered with the last trail of departing dropships. The Velari were gone, safe. The Voidborn began their final approach. They didn't fire. They didn't speak. They simply appeared, phasing closer with each breath, surrounding the Resolute until it was nothing more than prey in a tightening cage. The bridge lights dimmed. Kara opened a fleet-wide channel, even though only her own crew could hear now. They called for help. We came. That's who we are. That's who we stay until the last second. The first impact hit something huge clawing at the hull. And another. Then dozens more. The ship groaned under the pressure, metal screeching like it was alive and in pain. Rhodes looked at Kara. Core is ready. She took a deep breath. Then let's light up the void. The Resolute's main screen showed the reactor countdown 10 seconds. Glowing red dot in those seconds, strange things happened. The Voidborn stopped clawing. They froze, as if they understood. Then, as one, they began to retreat. But it was too late. The core went critical. Light erupted from the Resolute like a newborn star, tearing through the black ships. They didn't explode, they unraveled, their forms breaking into shreds of shadow and scattering into the void. The blast rolled across orbit, through the atmosphere, and into space so deep that even the stars seemed to flicker. When it was over, there was nothing left of the Resolute. Only a slow wave of dust, drifting where she had been. Days later, the Velari survivors told the story in every port they reached. They spoke of humans who came when no one else would, of warships that fought with impossible precision, of one ship that stayed behind so others could live. And across the galaxy, even in places that hated humans, a new whisper spread. If the Deathworlders answer your call, you might just survive. Asterisk,